Have you ever thought, sometimes what topples an entire empire isn't a direct punch from a rival, not a brutal financial crisis, but a small whisper, softly rising in the silence? A whisper from someone you would never think could become the factor that turns everything around. A child. More precisely, an 8-year-old girl. I know it sounds exaggerated, but picture this. You're a millionaire. You built a cybersecurity empire with intellect and iron discipline. You are confident nothing can slip past you. And then one day, right in your familiar office where you believe every nook is under your control, a child walks in and whispers 8 words in your ear. There's a camera in this room, but it's not yours. Just 8 words, but enough to freeze your blood, send your heart into a frenzy, and make what you once believed certain suddenly fragile as glass. That afternoon, sunlight crashed down from the city's upper floors. Golden slashes cut across the glossy wooden floor like swords hacking into thick air. In the room, the clacking of keys mingled with the electronic hum of servers, routers, and monitors. A modern, cold scene where data ruled as absolute king. At the center was Adrian Park, 30 years old, tech millionaire, tall and lean, nearsighted eyes gleaming beneath the blue light of the screen. Earbuds in, voice steady, analyzing firewalls, sandboxes, encryption algorithms, terms too technical for ordinary people to grasp. But to him, that was the daily rhythm of breath. At the threshold, Naya lay stood still. 8 years old, hair hastily tied, big brown eyes like chestnuts observing. 6 months earlier, Adrian had brought her home with a decision that seemed like doing good, adopting a child from the foster system. He provided her everything, a spacious room, a good school, brand new toys. But he forgot something important. A child doesn't just need a roof and material things. She needs to be seen, to be heard. And Adrian, like so many adults, didn't look. Naya was used to invisibility. 3 prior foster families taught her a harsh rule. Children must be silent to be safe. Adults often smile, but their eyes don't. Adults often promise, but their hands never grasp a child's small hand when she needs it. So today, standing at the office door, Naya observed. That was her survival skill. Watch first, speak later. 10 minutes passed. Adrian didn't turn. He typed, he spoke, he calculated. To him, everything was a security problem. But just then, in the corner of the room, a minuscule detail he hadn't noticed blinked. A red dot from behind an ash-glazed ceramic statue. An object Celeste Voss, the woman he loved, the woman he thought was the future, had gifted him with honeyed words, a little art for your austere room. To Adrian, it was just a decorative gift. To Naya, it was a watching eye. Last night she couldn't sleep and wandered to the kitchen for water. And she saw it, blinking quietly like a creature hiding in the dark. Today, the afternoon light exposed it again, so clear it couldn't be ignored. She hesitated. Should she speak? Adults rarely believe children. Adrian was all the more busy, hard to approach. But if she didn't speak, danger would grow day by day. She remembered her birth mother's voice before they were separated. Speak the truth, even when others don't want to hear it. That memory moved her small feet one step closer. She tugged lightly at Adrian's shirt. He raised a finger, the familiar signal. Wait a moment. But Naya had been waiting for 6 months. Waiting to be looked in the eyes, to be acknowledged. For someone to believe, even once in her life, that she wasn't invisible. She tugged again, stronger. And then, when she still received only eyes glued to the screen, she decided to break the silence. Leaning close to his ear, she whispered, "There's a camera in this room, but it's not yours." In that moment, the world flipped. Adrian froze. His fingers hovered over the keyboard like stone. His heart pounded, louder in his ears than the partner's voice on Zoom. He whipped around, and for the first time he truly looked at Naya. No longer a charity project, No longer the child he supplied with material things to placate society, but a human being with blazing brown eyes, with words that could change fate. Some will ask, how could an 8-year-old see what a cybersecurity millionaire missed? The answer is simple. She observed with the instinct of survival, not with the complacent habits of adults. Adults often believe the systems they build are impregnable. Children don't. Children hear, see, and sense the smallest details. That is what saves. Up to this point, what do you see? A lit room, a busy man, a trembling child. But in truth, that was the moment a seed of doubt was sown. It would grow into a storm that exposed betrayal, ripped open deceit, shredded saccharine pretenses, and all because a child chose not to be silent. The moment Adrian turned and looked into Naya's eyes, something broke in the air. The room, once thick with electronic sound, fell silent, as if the universe held its breath, awaiting an answer. "What did you just say?" he asked, voice hoarse, low, like someone whose chest had been drained of oxygen. Naya didn't repeat immediately. She simply raised her hand, a trembling index finger pointing toward the bookshelf where the ash-glazed statue stood quietly. "There. It blinks every night. I saw it. It's not like a network light. It isn't connected to the home system." Adrian turned, eyes locked on Celeste Voss's gift. He recalled clearly the day she brought it, her radiant smile, her sweet voice. "A bit of art will make your workplace less tense." Then he smiled and accepted it, believing it was thoughtful care. Now every shard of memory became a sharp blade aimed at his trust. He moved closer. His hand touched the statue, cold and smooth beneath the skin. From a certain angle, there truly was a faint blinking light, like an eye winking. Impossible. He was a cybersecurity expert. He had presented at international conferences on detecting disguised surveillance devices. He had warned governments that enemies could use seemingly harmless objects as tools of monitoring. And now, in his own office, had he let a device slip by right under his nose. Blood rushed to his temples. But along with it came a different astonishment. Naya, an 8-year-old girl, discovered what he had missed. "Since when did you notice?" Adrian asked. Naya lowered her head, voice light as breath. "Since the day Miss Celeste hung it up. I couldn't sleep. I took the tablet to scan signals. I learned that from when you fixed the router. I saw a lot of strange waves in the house, but this one was different. It wasn't on our home network." Adrian was stunned. For 6 months, he'd never imagined the silent child observed so closely. In his eyes, Naya was just a wounded child, needing care, needing a home. But now she was showing him a frightening truth. Even a child's innocence was enough to reveal what adults foolishly overlooked. He drew a deep breath and ended the call on the screen. "Gentlemen, we'll continue later." His voice sounded decisive. Before the partner could react, the screen was dark. The room sank into quiet. Only his pounding heart and Naya's blazing brown eyes remained. A part of Adrian wanted to deny it. He wanted to believe Celeste couldn't betray him. That woman had shared romantic dinners, long nights of conversation, soft laughter when she brewed coffee and set it on his desk exactly when he was most exhausted. Was it all staged? The question hurt sharply. But in front of him was evidence. A child who didn't know how to lie, who didn't know how to fake, had seen that red light many nights in a row. And Adrian himself had just seen it. "Come here," he said. His voice had changed, no longer dry. Something in it softened. Naya stepped forward slowly, hesitant, unsure if he truly wanted to listen. "Show me," he said. "Everything you found." Naya's eyes lit up. For the first time, someone asked her to present, not dismiss. She ran into the hall, grabbed the tablet on the small table. Tiny fingers skimmed across the screen quickly, confident enough to make Adrian reel for an instant. The screen displayed the house network map. A series of familiar signals, phones, laptops, security cameras, smart lighting. but mixed in were unusual red dots. "This is the one behind the statue," Naya pointed. "This is the one in the crystal vase in the living room. And this," her finger trembled slightly, "in your bedroom drawer." Adrian held his breath. 3 red dots. 3 invisible eyes. His entire house, the fortress he believed impenetrable, had apparently been infiltrated for a long time. And the infiltrator wasn't some anonymous hacker across the ocean. All the clues pointed to the person closest to him, Celeste Voss. He dropped into a chair, both hands gripping his head. In that moment, he was no longer a millionaire, no longer a tech prodigy. He was just a man deceived, violated in the safest place he knew. Naya stood quietly beside him, eyes full of hesitation. She had prepared herself for him not to believe, for him to rage at a child meddling in adults' affairs. But instead he whispered, gentle yet certain, "You just saved me." Those words made her eyes glisten. In 6 months, she had never heard anything that made her feel so acknowledged. So many times in foster homes she'd been brushed off. "You're just imagining. What do kids know?" But this time Adrian believed. And that belief lit something in Naya's heart. Hope. In this moment, we must ask ourselves, why can a child see more clearly than an adult? The answer lies in innocence. Adults are often blinded by trust, by emotion, by the desire that the person they love is genuine. Children are different. They look straight, see straight, not fooled by a sweet facade. Adrian knew this well. He'd spent his life building systems to block intruders from afar, but forgot that the most dangerous ones often stand right beside you with a charming smile and gentle eyes. And the child he thought was an outsider had pulled him out of his illusion. He nodded slightly, a decision forming. "Naya," he said, "from now on, we'll work together. No one gets to ignore your words anymore." The child's lips quivered, then curled into a small, genuine smile, the first since she entered this house. And from that second on, the game changed. That night, Adrian barely slept. The large, luxurious bedroom with ash-gray silk curtains and soft yellow night lamp suddenly became an invisible prison. On the bed, Celeste lay on her side, breathing evenly, her soft hands resting on the sheet like a tranquil painting. But to Adrian, each breath was an echoing lie. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts drilling deeper. If those cameras were truly planted by her, how long had he been watched? How many calls, documents, top-secret plans had been funneled into other ears? And worse, did the love he believed in ever truly exist? Or was it all a role in a perfect play? Across the hall, Naya was curled under her blanket, also awake. She lay on her back, eyes open wide, listening to every faint sound in the house. A child who had lived through 3 temporary homes knew well, when truth cracks open, danger follows close. If Celeste knew she'd been discovered, she could do anything to cover it up. For a child, that fear is razor sharp. But instead of panicking, Naya chose the way she knew best: silent observation. In the dark, her brown eyes, bright as chestnuts, stayed open, waiting. Morning sunlight pierced the curtains, bathing the kitchen in warm gold. Celeste came down, blonde hair loose, a picture-perfect figure as if from a magazine. She smiled sweetly when she saw Adrian already sitting there, a steaming cup of coffee before him. "Up early? Worried about the new software launch?" Her voice was clear, gentle, but to Adrian's ears, every word was a pinprick. He nodded lightly, hiding his eyes behind the paper. Inside, a battle raged: confront Celeste now or keep pretending to gather more evidence. Reason screamed, "You need proof." Emotion countered, "I can't bear one more second of lies." He tightened his grip on the cup handle, the liquid lapping, almost spilling. Naya sat silently beside him, quietly eating cereal. She didn't look at Celeste, nor at Adrian. But the way she rotated the spoon, rhythmic, was like fixing each word, each glance, each movement to memory. To an outsider, she was merely a child at breakfast. In truth, the 8-year-old was recording every detail, a covert witness. And here, we see something astounding. Sometimes children are the most vivid cameras of all. Celeste tilted her head, placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder, her voice full of care. "You look tired. I told you not to stay up late so many times. Work is important, but your health is more important." If anyone witnessed it, they would have thought this a tender moment of concern. But Adrian, with ears sharpened by Naya's whisper, heard another layer: control. He replied with a faint smile, but inside he swore he would not let himself be lulled again. Right after breakfast, when Celeste left the house on a spa appointment, Adrian called Naya into the library. The room was large, walls lined with books, a hint of oak in the air, light slanting through the glass windows. He sat, gestured, "Tell me everything. Don't leave out a single detail." Naya hugged the tablet, but her eyes shone. This was her chance to prove her value, to be truly listened to by an adult. "Miss Celeste has come to your office many times when you were out," Naya said firmly. "She pretends to tidy up, but I saw her holding a small camera, photographing papers on the desk. I also heard her ask me about your schedule, many times. Like she wanted me to accidentally reveal things." Adrian clenched the armrest. The wood creaked. A part of him still wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence piled up, and this time it couldn't be brushed aside. He nodded, signaling Naya to continue. "And more," the girl lowered her voice. "A few times when you were on business trips, a man came. They met in your office. I heard the name Miles. They talked about product timeline and synchronizing timing. I didn't understand everything, but I'm sure it wasn't normal." "Miles?" Adrian reeled. Miles Chen, the CFO, his closest friend, the man who had built the company with him from zero. The thought that Miles could be involved twisted his stomach. But his gut told him Naya didn't make this up. She had no reason to. And if Miles had truly betrayed him, this went beyond a few cameras. This was a scheme. Adrian sprang up and paced quickly. The library walls seemed to close in. The air grew thick. Naya sat still, watching, unblinking. Then she spoke a sentence he didn't expect. "You need allies." Adults often overlook small details, but outsiders see clearly. "There is someone here. Who do you mean?" Adrian stopped, eyes boring into those brown eyes. "Mrs. Josephine," Naya answered firmly. "She's lived in this house longer than you. She sees everything, and she's the only adult who ever listened to me." Adrian went quiet. Josephine, the elderly housekeeper who had been with the Monroe family since his parents were alive. After they passed, Josephine stayed, quietly caring for the house. He'd treated her like familiar furniture, not thinking much. But Naya was right. Josephine was always there, observing, remembering, unnoticed. If anyone knew what Celeste had really been doing, it would be her. He sighed, a decision forming. "All right, this afternoon, we'll talk to her." "But Naya," he sat down, looking straight at the girl. "From now on, you don't walk around the house alone. Understand? If Celeste suspects, everything becomes dangerous." Naya nodded. But pride flashed in her eyes. Finally, she wasn't just a foster kid. She was an ally. And here we must pause to think, why would an 8-year-old girl become the anchor of a tech millionaire? The answer is simple. Adults chase data, contracts, profit, while children see what lies beyond numbers. Their silence, their persistent observation, is sometimes the warning adults need most. How many times in life do we overlook a small detail, only to realize later it was the crucial piece? In the afternoon, when Celeste left again, Adrian and Naya sat in the library waiting. Josephine entered, slow in gait, but eyes sharp as a blade. Adrian recounted briefly, then let Naya add details. The whole time, Josephine didn't interrupt. She sat upright, hands folded in her lap, listening to every word. When both finished, she finally said slowly, "I've suspected her for a long time." The words fell like a bell strike. Adrian was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never listened," Josephine replied, eyes turning toward Naya. "But this child is different," she observes. "She knows when a smile is real and when it's just a mask. And I trust her instincts." Adrian was speechless. Two females, one old, one young, becoming his natural allies. In that moment, he understood. This battle couldn't be won alone. Josephine lowered her voice and told what she'd observed. Celeste often called in the car, windows up, voice small, but her posture revealed tension. Many times she was found wandering the house early in the morning, pretending to look for books, but actually standing near the desk. Once she was caught opening a drawer when she thought no one was watching. Piece by piece, the picture became clear. Celeste wasn't just a caring lover, she was a spy. And if Miles Chen was truly behind it, this was a plot big enough to topple the entire company. The room fell into silence. 3 people, 3 generations, 3 different stations in life, now sat at the same table, bound by a cold truth. And at that very moment, a new family was forming, not by blood, but by trust and choice. Night fell. The house was as quiet as a beast holding its breath. The yard light cast a muddy glow on rose bushes. Leaf shadows swayed on the glass like hands about to clutch. Adrian stood by the office window, eyes on the darkness. Inside him, everything was turmoil. 6 months ago, this house was a symbol of success, a refuge after long days battling data and contracts. Now it had become a maze of suspicion, where every object might contain a poisonous secret. Naya curled up on the leather swivel chair, legs swinging, clutching her tablet. She didn't seem tired, her brown eyes shone in the warm light. Her feelings were different from Adrian's. For Naya, this was the first time she was recognized as part of the story, no longer an invisible shadow. Because of that, instead of fear, excitement flickered in her gaze. She knew danger was near, but also that she had found her true place. Josephine entered slowly with a tray of hot tea. Jasmine scent gently spread, soothing the tension. Nearly 70, this woman was used to crises in the Monroe family. But this time she clearly sensed things were more serious than ever. She set the tray down and said evenly, calmly, "Mr. Adrian, the child is right. I've been watching Miss Voss for weeks, too. Some things cannot be ignored." Adrian looked over at Josephine, eyes blank, like a man fallen out of a long dream. "What did you see?" Josephine nodded slightly. Phone calls in the car, always with the window closed, speaking very softly, but demeanor that can't be hidden. She also walks around the house at unusual hours. One morning at 6, I found her standing in the old man's room, not holding a book, not admiring anything, just staring at the old computer like she was weighing something. When I walked in, she started, faked a smile, and left. Adrian clenched the teacup. The hot liquid stung his skin. Josephine's words were the final cut, severing his last thread of illusion. Part of him still wanted to believe Celeste was simply the woman he loved, who cared and shared. But too many clues, too many matching details. Worst of all, he remembered the name Miles in Naya's story. Miles, the co-founder who once swore never to betray him. If it was all true, this wasn't just about love. It was a plot against the company's future. Naya set the tablet on the table. The screen showed a signal map, red dots blinking like open wounds on the house's body. They didn't just place 3. I've seen a few more strange signals. But I need time to be sure. Maybe in the garage, maybe in the living room where the crystal vase is. Josephine frowned. If that's true, we must move fast. If she realizes the girl is scanning, she will act. Adrian inhaled deeply. He now had to face a harsh truth. His home was no longer safe. Even the walls had ears. He glanced at the 2 women beside him, one old, one young, and recognized the paradox. These people he once considered peripheral were now his only trustworthy allies. "We need a plan," Adrian said, voice sharpening. "If Miles is truly involved, I cannot let him get further access to data. And if Celeste is watching, everything I do is under observation." We must pretend Naya tilted her head, curiosity lighting her eyes. "Pretend how?" Adrian looked at her, then at Josephine. "We have to show them what they want to see. If Celeste believes I'm still naive, if Miles believes I don't know, they'll reveal their own cracks. But this is dangerous. If we misstep, we'll be destroyed before we can counterattack." Josephine nodded, eyes stern. "You're right. But remember this, Mr. Adrian, sometimes to strip the mask from a liar, the only way is to hold up a mirror. We'll act as if everything is normal. Let her be confident, take another step. Then we strike." Naya tightened her grip on the tablet. She wanted to say more, then paused. After a few seconds, she spoke. "I can trace back. I tried. If I open the channel at the right time, I can find where the signal lands. I'm not sure, but I might trace the one behind it." Adrian looked at her, eyes wide, a mix of pride and worry. An 8-year-old was saying things even his grown engineering team struggled with. "Naya, do you know the danger? If they discover it, you'll be the first target." The girl lifted her chin, voice unnaturally calm for her age. "I've lived invisible my whole life. No one notices me. That's an advantage. They don't think I'm smart enough to detect anything. That's why I'm safer than you think." The words stunned Adrian. A child shouldn't have to say that, but painful experience had forged Naya's clarity. In her eyes there was no fear, only resolve. He understood that stopping her would be to deny who she truly was. Josephine gently laid a hand on Naya's shoulder, voice low. "You are brave. But remember, we do this together. No one goes alone." Outside, an engine sounded. All three flinched. Celeste was back. Swiftly, Adrian gestured. The tablet was switched off and tucked under a cushion. Josephine carried the tea tray into the hall, pretending to tidy. Adrian's face returned to normal, calm gaze, hand resting on a book as if reading. The door opened. Celeste entered, sweet perfume flooding the air. She smiled, handbag dangling on her shoulder. "Still in the library?" "I bought some wine for dinner." Her voice was velvet, but to Adrian it was a cold blade. He looked up and smiled gently, replying, "Perfect. You always know how to surprise me." Naya watched quietly from the chair. She didn't blink, recording every raised eyebrow, every quick press on a phone that others might miss. She saw it all, and in her eyes, Celeste's perfect mask had begun to crack. That night at dinner, the atmosphere differed from the surface. Celeste poured wine, smiled sweetly, chatted as though nothing were unusual. Under that veneer, tension hummed. Adrian listened, nodding, but inside he recorded every detail, preparing for the counterstrike. Naya sat still, spoke little, but her ears caught every word. Josephine was quiet, but her eyes followed Celeste like a hawk tracking prey. To an outsider, this was a normal family dinner. In truth, it was a chess match. Every glance, every smile, every word was a move. Adrian knew, to strip Celeste's mask, he needed patience, but his heart burned with the fire of betrayal. He swore that when the game ended, the loser would not be him. The next morning, the house seemed unchanged. Sunlight streamed through the dining room windows, reflecting off bright silverware. The beige tablecloth lay smooth. Celeste's voice remained gentle as always. She smiled, asked Adrian about his schedule, asked Naya about math homework, occasionally leaned down to kiss his cheek like the perfect girlfriend. But only those at the table knew everything had changed. Those smiles were no longer tenderness, but a mask tightly glued to hide true intent. The scariest part, the mask was so skillfully applied that, without evidence, even the sharpest person would struggle to tell truth from falsehood. Adrian looked at Celeste, and the question rang inside. How many times before had he been fooled by that very smile? How many times did he think he was loved, while he was only a hunted target? Humiliation rose, but he swallowed it, hiding behind a counterfeit gentle gaze. He now understood, to expose a liar, you cannot act rashly. Let them confidently take another step, exposing themselves in the trap. When Celeste left to buy flowers for the living room, Adrian and Josephine immediately entered the library. Naya ran after them, tablet in her arms. 3 people, 3 generations, now tightly bonded like a covert team. "It's time to try," Adrian said, voice low but firm. "We need to show her what she wants, and watch how she reacts." Josephine nodded. "A trap, but deftly. If she senses it, we lose everything," Naya added, small voice but resolute. "I can make a fake file. A schematic of the algorithm, but wrong at key points. At a glance, it looks real, but if someone steals and uses it, it leads to completely wrong results." Adrian looked at the girl, both astonished and proud. "Where did you learn that?" "I watch you work," Naya said simply. "I've seen you leave decoy files on your machine to test hackers. I'm just doing the same." In that moment, Adrian realized this child didn't just observe others. She learned each move, each strategy. And Naya's previous invisibility had made her the silent student he never knew he had. The plan took shape quickly. Adrian would accidentally leave the fake file on the office computer. Naya would monitor network signals to see when it was accessed. Josephine would watch Celeste in the house, noting every unusual act. That afternoon, the trap was set. Adrian sat in his office, typed a few lines of fake code, occasionally frowning like a man wrestling with a tough problem. He left the screen on while stepping out for water, deliberately leaving the file visible on the desktop. As expected, Celeste walked in, tilted her head, smiled. "Working late again?" She only glanced at the screen briefly, but her eyes flashed for a second, enough for Adrian to know she had seen it. From the kitchen, Josephine quietly took note. She saw Celeste's stride down the hallway, a touch hurried, her hand gripping the handbag tighter than usual. Tiny details, but to experienced eyes, signs of someone hiding something. That evening, the family ate together. Adrian pretended to be preoccupied, talked about tomorrow's meeting, dropped a few hints about an almost finished algorithm. Celeste listened, eyes attentive, occasionally nodding and asking seemingly harmless questions. "So you're launching soon? When's the announcement? Any international guests?" In the past, Adrian would have taken it as care. Now he heard calculation and probing in each question. Naya sat quietly, face down over her soup, but her ears perked. She memorized every line to report to Adrian later. And in those young eyes there was pride. Finally, she was not the overlooked child, but an important player in the game. Late at night, with Celeste asleep, Adrian and Naya sat in the office. The girl's tablet glowed, displaying network traffic. "Got it," Naya whispered. "A strange device just accessed the file. Not your machine, not the home network." Adrian bent down, heart pounding. On the screen, data lines appeared. The fake file had been downloaded. And the source was none other than the device behind the ceramic statue. Celeste had taken the bait. Adrian shut his eyes, inhaled deeply. The evidence was taking shape, but at the same time another pain rose. The woman he once thought he would spend his life with turned out to be a patient predator, feigning gentleness to devour her prey. Josephine entered with a blanket for Naya. "The child needs sleep," she whispered. But Naya shook her head, eyes blazing. "I don't sleep until this is done." The answer choked Adrian with emotion. An 8-year-old who should only worry about homework and dolls at this hour was bearing a battle against betrayal beside him. We must ask, how many times in life have adults ignored children's warnings simply because they think children are too young to understand? And how many times has that very innocence saved us? Outside the window, the night was pitch black, but inside the room, the blue screen light washed over their faces. They sat close, the millionaire, the elderly housekeeper, and the 8-year-old, like three figures in a life-and-death chess game. For the first time, Adrian felt he was not alone. He had allies. He whispered just loud enough for the other two to hear, "The battle has only begun. They think they control us, but in truth, we're leading them into the trap." Naya smiled, her first real smile in months. She no longer felt invisible. And in that moment, a family, not by blood, but by choice, was forming. The next morning, the air in the house was heavy as mist. Celeste descended the stairs, graceful gait, radiant smile, but a glint of unease she couldn't quite hide. Adrian recognized it immediately. He had seen that look hundreds of times in boardrooms, the look of someone who knows they've made a slip. The only question, how suspicious was she now, and what would she do? Naya sat at the table, quietly stirring cereal. In truth, she was observing. She saw how tightly Celeste gripped her coffee cup, how her thumb tapped the phone screen hidden under the table, how her smile was slightly forced. To adults, these were little gestures. To Naya, they were signs. She sensed like a cat smells smoke before fire. Adrian sat opposite, pretending to flip the paper. "I've got a late meeting tonight," he dropped casually. Celeste nodded, eyes flickering. "I'll pack you a snack then." "You always forget to take care of yourself," sweet words, but to Adrian, it sounded like a probe. If she truly cared, why did her hand still text under the table? Josephine emerged from the kitchen with a tray of fruit. Her eyes slid across Celeste, noting every detail. She had seen enough deceit in her life to know, when someone is too perfect, that's precisely when you must be careful. When Celeste left to meet a friend, Adrian pulled Naya and Josephine into the library. The door closed, the air taut as a string. "She's starting to suspect," Adrian said, voice low. "We need to tighten the trap faster, or she'll erase the traces before we can expose them." Naya hugged her tablet, fingers tapping incessantly. Last night, after taking the fake file, the device transmitted the data outside. I traced the route. It led to a server in Zurich. But to be sure, I need more time. Adrian nodded, pride and worry flickering in his eyes. "You're doing what even my team struggles to keep up with. But be careful. If they realize they're being traced back, we'll be in real danger." Josephine crossed her arms, voice firm. "You're right. And remember, the most dangerous enemy isn't in Zurich, but inside this house. She'll test you. She'll try to push you into awkwardness. And you must act better than her." Adrian pressed his lips together. He had never thought he'd one day have to pretend with the woman he once trusted. But now the game had become a battle for survival. That afternoon, Celeste returned unusually early. She walked straight into the library where Adrian sat. "Are you busy?" she asked lightly, eyes probing. Adrian smiled, set his laptop aside. "No, I'm on a break. What's up?" Celeste sat opposite, legs crossed, her perfume filling the room. "I just feel you've been different lately. More distant. Is there something you're not telling me?" Adrian looked straight into those blue eyes, heart hammering, but his voice remained calm. "I'm just tired. Work has piled up." Celeste smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "You know, secrets aren't good for love. If there's something, you should share." The sentence twisted like a blade. Adrian realized this wasn't care anymore. This was interrogation. He answered with the composure of someone who also knew how to play chess. "I'm not hiding anything from you. But if you want, tonight I'll tell you about the new algorithm." Celeste's eyes lit briefly. "Really? I'd love to hear it." In the hallway, Naya pressed herself behind a cracked door, listening to every word. She could see clearly. Celeste was no longer a graceful silhouette, but a cunning predator. and she silently promised herself she would not let Adrian fall into those jaws again. That night, dinner felt strange. Adrian talked about the algorithm, offering some carefully altered details. Celeste listened, nodded, asked a few more questions, then smiled in satisfaction. But both Naya and Josephine saw calculation cold as ice in Celeste's eyes. When dinner ended, Celeste excused herself to make a call. Josephine followed at a distance. She saw Celeste go into the garden, pull out her phone, voice small but urgent. "Tonight. He's going to announce earlier. Be ready, Miles, don't be late." The name crashed like thunder in Josephine's head. She hurried back into the library and reported to Adrian and Naya. There was no doubt now. Miles Chen was truly involved. Adrian clenched his fist, eyes blazing. Enough. Time to show them who they're dealing with. Naya looked up, eyes alight. "What will we do?" Adrian sat, voice steel strong. "We'll give Miles and Celeste a gift. A launch meeting for the algorithm with all the data they crave. But inside will be evidence, a trap. When they reveal themselves, we won't just have words. We'll have irrefutable proof." Josephine nodded, old eyes flashing. "Yes. When a traitor thinks they've won, that's when they're the least guarded." Outside, wind blew, leaves rustled across the path. The house grew quiet again, but not with peace, with the stillness before a storm. All three understood. The real battle was near. There was no turning back. Here we must ask, why do liars so often fail? Not because they aren't clever, but because they trust too much in the perfection of their masks. They think everyone is blind, everyone is enchanted. They forget there are always eyes that won't close. The eyes of a child, the eyes of an experienced elder, and the eyes of a man who has finally awakened. That night, when Celeste got into bed and wrapped her arms around him, Adrian lay still, eyes fixed on the ceiling. She whispered, "I love you." But in his heart, the only answer ringing back was, "You just stepped into the trap." The mock announcement was set for a Friday afternoon. Company headquarters shone brightly from early morning. The high glass reflected the pale blue sky. On the top floor, a luxurious conference room with walnut table, leather chairs, and a wall-sized LED screen. None of the staff knew this meeting wasn't just to introduce an algorithm, but also a carefully staged play. The only ones aware were Adrian and his two quiet allies, Naya and Josephine. Adrian entered, gait relaxed, black suit neat. But beneath that calm shell, every vein was strung taut. He had to act precisely, leave just enough openings for the prey to lunge while still controlling the whole thing. This was a game where a 1-second misstep would shatter everything. Miles Chen was already there, seated to the right, face as composed as always. His gaze met Adrian's. A familiar, polite smile appeared. But deep in his eyes, Adrian saw cold calculation. For years, they had built this company from nothing together. Adrian had trusted Miles as he trusted himself. Now, that man was poised to devour everything they'd built. Celeste appeared later, flawlessly dressed, deep blue dress fitted, blonde hair cascading. She sat near Miles, coincidentally, but too perfect to be random. Their eyes brushed briefly, a slight nod that seemed harmless, but to Adrian, it was a signal. They were aligned. Josephine sat quietly in a corner as a long-time assistant. No one paid her any mind, and that was her advantage. She watched everything, missing nothing. Naya, of course, couldn't be here. She was at home, hugging her tablet, monitoring the network stream remotely. Her little fingers tapped constantly. Her brown eyes lit up whenever the data flowed. She knew today the game would crest. Adrian stood and began. His voice rang clear, confident. Our new algorithm, a platform that will completely change how global data is processed. This is a leap, and I'm proud to share it with you. The screen flared to life with diagrams, figures, charts, all carefully altered, convincing enough to seem real, but hiding a fatal flaw. Miles nodded, attentive. Celeste tilted her head, lips curling slightly. The questions they asked weren't to understand the algorithm, but to confirm the file was the treasure they'd been waiting for. Adrian answered each one, smiling calmly, though inside every question twisted like a knife. These were the people who had dined at his table, shared wine, spoken of trust and future. Now it was all a facade. We must pause. What hurts more than a stab in the back, not from a stranger, but from your friend, your lover? How many companies, how many families fall not to external enemies, but to betrayal within? Adrian continued, but his eyes flicked toward Josephine. She gave a slight nod, a signal that Celeste had just sent a message under the table. To most eyes, nothing unusual. But Josephine's keen gaze caught the quick movement hidden beneath the hem of a dress. Adrian kept his calm, counting silently. It was only a matter of time. At home, Naya breathed a soft cheer. "Got it," she whispered to herself. A strange device had just downloaded the entire algorithm file from the server. The IP traced back Zurich. Right after, another address appeared, a secret law office in the Caymans. The data was being replicated, preparing for a global-scale betrayal. In the conference room, Adrian concluded, "Ladies and gentlemen, this achievement isn't just mine, but all of ours. And I believe the company's future is in safe hands." He looked straight at Miles, then at Celeste. The words rang like a blade. The outside audience heard gratitude. In truth, it was a veiled accusation. Miles smiled warmly. "Adrian, you're always the brilliant mind. We simply hope this algorithm can be tested in the real world soon. You can't keep it in a closed room forever." "Let the world see it," Celeste chimed in, eyes shining. "Honey, you've kept it a secret too long. It's time people knew how great you are." Two traitors, a former friend and a lover, together pushing him to share more. But Adrian was ready. He smiled and nodded. "You want tests? Fine. But every copy will be watermarked, and whoever accesses it will leave a digital signature. No one can deny it." The words made Miles stiffen for a breath. Celeste blinked. For a split second, the perfect mask cracked. Josephine saw it all. She tilted her head, pride flaring in old eyes. The boy she had raised had grown. Adrian closed his laptop, voice firm. "Today's meeting is adjourned. The rest I will present to all shareholders next week." He walked out, back straight, leaving Miles and Celeste with strange smiles fading from their faces. At home, Naya hugged her tablet, whispering, "They bit." Beyond the glass, the sky flushed with sunset orange. A great storm was near. But this time, Adrian wasn't alone. He had a child once considered invisible, and an elderly housekeeper once considered furniture. And, together, they would bring down the curtain on this betrayal. Shareholder Day arrived faster than anyone expected. Headquarters towered over the city, glass reflecting the blazing noon sun. Outside, a line of luxury cars stopped at the entrance. Reporters jostled for shots, lenses tracking every figure. But no one knew that behind those doors, a play was being staged, not just about profit, but a public court for truth. Adrian entered the hall, walking slow and steady. He wore a charcoal suit, a deep blue tie, eyes cold as steel. Hundreds of eyes followed, many nodded, many smiled politely. He nodded back, knowing full well, half of them would applaud whoever brought more profit. In business, trust is thinner than glass. Celeste appeared dazzling as a goddess, a flaming red dress like fire, lips painted to match. She smiled, eyes gleaming, walking quickly to Adrian's seat, as if they were still the perfect couple. The audience murmured, many eyes admiring. No one suspected that the smile hid a blade. Miles Chen sat in the opposing row, dignified, a finely tailored black suit, hand resting lightly on the table like a statesman. To many, he was the trusted face of finance, the pillar of the company. To Adrian, today Miles was merely a traitor waiting to be exposed. Josephine sat quietly in the back row, old eyes serene. She'd come not to debate shares, but to witness truth speak. Somewhere private, Naya sat in a small room, eyes glued to her tablet, directly connected to the system. Tiny fingers tapped continuously, ready for the decisive moment. The meeting began. The board chair opened, but everyone knew they were waiting for Adrian Monroe. When his name echoed, the hall fell silent. Adrian rose, stepped onto the stage. The lights shone on his face, encircling him with a halo mixed with pressure. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice rang clear and calm, "today isn't just about profit. It's also the day we answer a question. What is this company built on? Trust or deceit?" The hall buzzed. Miles frowned briefly. Celeste tilted her head, smile intact but eyes hardened. Adrian continued, voice sharp as a blade. "For months, some have tried to seize what we've built. They thought I didn't know. They thought a perfect mask could hide the truth. But every action leaves a trace. And today I will show you those traces," he gestured. The lights dimmed. The giant screen lit up. Data graphs appeared, then quickly switched to network logs, IP strings, transmission footprints, access times. Adrian's voice boomed. "Here is when a hidden device in my house transmitted data out. Here is when the counterfeit algorithm file was downloaded. And here is the destination." A red dot appeared. Zurich. The hall gasped. Then another, Cayman. Whispering swelled like waves. Adrian paused, eyes fixed on Miles and Celeste. "Do you know who accessed that file? Not some distant hacker, but people sitting in this very room." The hall exploded in chatter. Miles jumped up, growling, "You have no proof." "This is fabricated." Adrian's lip curled. "Proof? Fine," he signaled. In the small room, Naya pressed a button. The screen played a recording, Celeste's voice, shaky but clear. "Tonight," he'll announce earlier. "Be ready, Miles, don't be late." The hall went dead still. Each word fell like a hammer. Every eye turned to Celeste. She stiffened, her smile vanished, her hands clenched the seat. Adrian looked straight at her, voice icy. "You thought I was blind. But it was my daughter, an 8-year-old girl, who saw what I missed. Her silence saved us. Many were stunned." "A little girl?" But his tone held no boast, only stark truth. Miles blanched, voice cracking. "You staged a trap." "This is entrapment." Adrian enunciated each word. "No, Miles. This is justice. You betrayed me, the company, and our trust. And Celeste, you didn't only betray love, you betrayed yourself." The hall erupted. Some shareholders stood, shouting for an immediate investigation. Phones went up, live streams began. News spread like wildfire. Josephine sat quietly, the corner of her lips lifting. She had lived long enough to know the moment truth rises is always the most beautiful, even when it comes with blood and tears. Celeste trembled, lips quivering. "Adrian, But Adrian cut her off, voice glacial. "You had your chance. You chose another path. And today, everyone has seen it." In that second, the perfect mask fell. Before hundreds of eyes, Celeste was no longer a radiant goddess, but a traitor laid bare. The hall roared. Chairs scraped, phones rang, camera flashes popped. No one cared for the shareholder agenda. Everything revolved around two names, Miles Chen and Celeste Hart. Adrian stood on the stage. He didn't need to rap for order because every gaze was fixed on him. He slowly placed a thick folder on the table, voice even and firm. "Here is the full body of evidence, from suspicious financial transactions to system access logs to audio recordings and camera footage. You can review it now or wait for investigators to conclude. But I affirm, the traitors have been inside our house." The air congealed. Miles reddened, growling, "This is a conspiracy to bring me down." "Adrian, you staged the entire plot just to seize total control of the company." But before he could continue, two men in black suits with federal badges entered the hall. One spoke in a deep voice. "We're agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have a warrant for the arrest of Miles Chen on suspicion of corruption, money laundering, and industrial espionage, and a summons for Celeste Hart to investigate her role as accomplice." The entire hall held its breath. Cameras swung to focus. Some shareholders quickly stepped back, away from the two people they had cheered just minutes earlier. Miles cursed and struggled. "You have no evidence. I'll sue you all." But the agents pinned his hands and cuffed him. The cold clink of metal rang like a verdict. Celeste's face turned pale, her lips trembled. Tears rolled, but people's eyes had changed. No longer admiration, only contempt. She tried to turn to Adrian, pleading, "Adrian, believe me. You know I truly love you." Adrian stared, emotionless. "Celeste, love isn't proven by tears. It's proven by honesty. You chose betrayal." A burst of applause sounded unexpectedly, then spread. Shareholders, one by one, rose. Not to celebrate ruin, but to applaud truth. In that moment, Adrian understood. Trust does not die. It merely needs someone brave enough to defend it. At the back, Josephine dabbed her eyes, whispering, "At last, justice has a voice." In the small control room, Naya hugged her tablet, heart pounding. She wasn't just a spectator, she was the quiet hero. It was a child's clear eyes that pierced the mask adults failed to see through. Adrian stepped down from the podium, walking straight to his adopted daughter waiting in the back hall. She flew into his arms and whispered, "I was afraid you wouldn't believe me anymore." He held her tight, voice choked. "I'm sorry I was slow to believe. But today, the whole world saw you were right. You saved me, saved this company. And most importantly, you gave me a real family." The hall gradually calmed after the storm. Empty seats, murmurs dwindling and fading like smoke after a blaze. The glass still reflected the bright light outside, but in everyone's hearts, the air had changed. This day would be remembered for years, a turning point not only for the corporation, but for the people within it. Adrian sat alone at the end of a corridor, jacket off, tie loosened. He felt exhausted, but lighter than ever. The past 6 months were like a nightmare, and he had just walked out of it, not alone. Beside him, Naya leaned her head on his shoulder, her small face peaceful after days of tension. Josephine sat across, holding a cup of hot tea, her gentle eyes like a grandmother watching her grandchild. "Dad," Naya said softly, sleepy but sure, "we won today, didn't we?" Adrian smiled, tousled her hair. "Yes, honey. But the biggest win isn't keeping the company. It's that I learned to listen to you." Josephine nodded slightly. She knew this man had truly changed. No longer someone closed off amid numbers and security systems, but a father who knew to put heart before profit. A few weeks later, the company held a press conference. The media dubbed it the Celeste Miles scandal and praised Adrian for exposing an international industrial espionage plot. But when asked what he was most proud of, Adrian simply replied, "I'm proud to have a brave 8-year-old daughter who saved this family and this company." The room froze. Camera flashes went off in bursts, but what lingered in the audience's hearts wasn't an image of a powerful CEO. It was of a father who bowed to thank his daughter. Naya became the focus of many articles. 8-year-old girl exposes industrial espionage. Children's eyes see what adults overlook. But instead of basking in praise, she squeezed her father's hand and said, "I don't need their compliments. I just need you to believe me." That simple sentence touched millions of hearts. Because who among us hasn't once wished the person we love would believe us from the start? Adrian decided to establish a fund called the Naya Foundation, dedicated to supporting children in orphanages and families victimized by fraud. He believed that if we listen to small voices, we won't miss the most important truths. Josephine became the soul of the fund. with her experience and kind heart. And Naya, once a child living in uncertainty, had found a true home. On the final night of the story, their house was different. No hidden cameras, no fake gazes. On the wall, instead of the painting Celeste brought, now hung a white canvas where Naya had drawn the three of them holding hands under a blue sky. Simple, clumsy, but containing everything. Before bed, Naya looked at her father and whispered, "Thank you for listening to me." Adrian hugged her tight and replied, "No, I should be the one thanking you for teaching me how to listen." Outside, the city still blazed with lights, still noisy with power struggles. But inside that small home, a family had found the most precious thing: trust.